Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into something we all deal with: financial rules. You know, those strict guidelines meant to keep our money safe. But here's the secret. To truly master your money, you actually need to know exactly when to break them. We're going to follow our trusty doodle stickman to visualize why financial rules act as protective guardrails and precisely when you should take a deliberate off-ramp to really accelerate your wealth.
Now, there's a core tension in personal finance, right? It's deeply personal. Strict math looks fantastic on a spreadsheet, but let's be real, life rarely operates like a spreadsheet. We all go through what we like to call the messy middle. You know, you have kids, buy a house, switch careers, and suddenly those rigid guardrails feel incredibly restrictive. Sometimes, to survive and ultimately build wealth, you've got to bend the rules. The trick is knowing how to bend them without completely crashing your financial vehicle.
To map out this journey, we're hitting 4 key stages: rules for big life purchases, debt and emergency fund rules, the wealth building rules, and finally, knowing when to get help. Let's get right into it.
First up, rules for big life purchases.
We're talking about the 2 things that eat up the vast majority of your income: your vehicles and your shelter. Listen, nothing destroys wealth faster for the average American than the automobile. It's the ultimate wealth killer. Consider this absolutely staggering fact. The median single income in this country is about $45,000, yet the average new car now costs over $50,000. People are literally driving around in vehicles that cost more than they make in an entire year. No way! This is exactly why we absolutely must adhere to the 23-8 rule to keep from facing financial ruin.
Now, paying cash for a car is always the gold standard, but we know you might need a car to get to your job to even start building wealth. So if you can't pay cash, you have to follow these boundaries. Put 20% down to avoid being underwater, finance for no more than 36 months, so just 3 years, and ensure your total monthly payment never exceeds 8% of your gross income. Oh, and a crucial caveat here. This rule is strictly to get you basic, reliable transportation. Never ever use the 23-8 rule to justify financing a luxury car.
But here's where it gets interesting: taking the off-ramp. Our stickman staying safely inside the lines with 23-8 is great, but breaking this rule is perfectly fine under one very specific condition. You are breaking it downwards. It's totally okay to put more than 20% down, to finance for less than 3 years, or to keep your payment well under 8%. You break the rule to be more aggressive with your wealth, never to stretch your budget for a fancier ride.
All right, next up, your home. For the absolute biggest purchase of your life, we rely on the 3-5-25 rule. You need at least a 3% down payment for your first home. You need to plan on staying in that house for a minimum of 5 years to weather any real estate market fluctuations. And crucially, your total housing cost should not exceed 25% of your monthly gross income. The goal here is pretty simple. Ensure your housing costs don't crowd out your ability to save for your future. You definitely don't want to be house rich and life poor.
But what if you live in a crazy real estate market? Well, you can strategically break that 25% maximum in a few specific scenarios. If you live in a high-cost area, like New York or San Francisco, you might stretch that to 30%, provided you have offsetting savings. Like maybe you don't own a car because you use public transit. Or you can take the off-ramp if you're in a specialized career with a guaranteed rapid income trajectory. If you're a resident doctor or a newly minted engineer and you know your income is rocketing up next year, you can stretch the rule today, knowing you're going to grow right into it tomorrow.
Moving on to step 2, debt and emergency fund rules.
Navigating everyday debt and unexpected emergencies requires strict boundaries. Why? So the mathematical miracle of compound interest doesn't end up working against you. Think about it. We hand 18-year-olds the power to make massive, life-altering financial decisions. With 44% of Gen Z carrying student loans and the average loan hanging around like a dark cloud for 20 years, we need a hard guardrail. Your total student loan borrowing should never exceed your anticipated first-year salary. If you expect to make $50,000 at your first job out of college, do not borrow a penny over $50,000.
So who gets a pass on this? Well, while most should definitely limit loans to their starting salary,
Future doctors, dentists, or attorneys taking a specialized off-ramp can temporarily take on more debt. You're permitted to break this rule, assuming your specialized degree has a high probability of producing an outsized future income. That high income will quickly extinguish that heavy debt load. Now let's talk credit cards. They're basically chainsaws. Incredibly useful if you know exactly how to use them, but they will literally cut your arm off if you make a mistake. Credit card debt is incredibly dangerous, and those 0% interest introductory offers you get in the mail, yeah, they're just a rope-a-dope trap. The banks give you a free hit to get you accustomed to carrying a balance. Don't fall into the dope trap. If you cannot pay the balance in full every single month, you are not a credit card person. Just cut them up.
On the flip side of debt is your safety net. You absolutely need 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in cash for emergencies. This keeps you far away from those credit cards when the transmission blows. But you can briefly break this glass in the case of a very specific emergency. If it's tax season and you're facing a retroactive Roth IRA contribution deadline, it's acceptable to drain a small amount of your emergency fund to hit that deadline, because once that window closes, you can't go back in time. Just promise us you'll refill the emergency fund immediately.
All right, step 3, the wealth building rules.
Once you're protected from disaster by avoiding bad debt and holding cash, it's time to put your army of dollar bills to work automatically, taking all the human emotion right out of the process. And the magic number here? It's 25%. Because most people don't wake up and start saving until they hit age 30, and because the safety net of corporate pensions is largely a thing of the past, you need to be investing 25% of your gross income for future financial independence. This includes your 401k, your IRAs, and importantly, it can include your employer match if you make under a certain threshold. You literally have to save a quarter of your income to secure your future.
But hey, remember that messy middle we talked about earlier? If life happens, say you have kids, you have to move across the country, or maybe you take a temporary pay cut for a much better career path, it is totally acceptable to take the messy middle off-ramp. You can temporarily reduce your 25% savings rate just to survive this chaotic season of life. Give yourself some grace. But the rule is, you absolutely must return to the 25% path as quickly as humanly possible.
So, what happens if you get lucky? An inheritance, a massive bonus, selling a business. We use the Goldilocks rule for windfalls. Statistically speaking, the market goes up way more often than it goes down. Therefore, if you receive a windfall that represents less than 10% of your total existing portfolio, the math dictates that you should invest it all at once as a lump sum. Just get it right into the market.
But personal finance isn't just math, right? It's psychology. You should break the lump sum rule and dollar cost average, meaning you drip the money into the market slowly over 12 months if the windfall is massive. Like if it's over half your liquid net worth, or if you know your own personality and a sudden 20% market drop the day after you invest would cause you extreme emotional distress, take the off-ramp. Smooth out the ride over a year so you can actually sleep at night.
And finally, step 4, knowing when to get help. As your wealth grows, your financial life inevitably becomes a lot more intricate. Enter the ultimate system, the Financial Order of Operations, or the FOO. This is a 9-step mathematical process that tells you exactly what to do with your next dollar to stay totally optimized. It covers everything: deductibles, employer matches, high-interest debt, emergency funds, the whole shebang. Reaching financial goals is incredibly hard if you're scattered. Following the FOO step-by-step compartmentalizes your journey and keeps you laser-focused.
But if you try to do the financial order of operations out of order, you end up with an oof. Yeah, an oof. You get a scattered, inefficient plan where your money actually works against you. Imagine funding a taxable brokerage account while you still have 22% credit card debt hanging around your neck. That is a massive oof. Stick to the sequence to keep your army of dollar bills marching in the right direction.
Part of mastering the sequence involves advanced tax arbitrage. It's like a giant puzzle. If your combined federal and state marginal tax rate is under 25%, you should really prioritize Roth accounts for that beautiful tax-free growth. But if you're in your peak earning years and your combined tax rate is over 30%, you're paying a massive toll to the government. You need to take the off-ramp and prioritize pre-tax accounts to capture immediate tax savings.
Don't be dogmatic about it. Use the tax code to your advantage. Now, you can absolutely be a do-it-yourself investor forever. Our DIY Stickman does it. There is zero shame in that. But you should take the off-ramp to a professional financial advisor when 3 things happen. 1, your life becomes too complex. 2, your time is too limited. Or 3, the gravity of your decisions increases. When making a mistake stops costing you $10 and starts costing you $100,000, yeah, it's time to bring an expert onto your team.
And that brings us to the end of our journey. By understanding the strict math behind these rules, you now have the power and the confidence to know exactly when stepping outside the lines is the smartest, most profitable financial move you can make. The guardrails keep you safely on the road, but the off-ramps take you to your unique destination. So, I leave you with this. Looking at your own life right now, which financial guardrail will you deliberately break to accelerate your wealth? Keep learning, keep optimizing, and we will catch you in the next explainer.
Freedom isn't given, it's built, and it starts with what you do next.